In this video, I'm going to teach you how to add a background, render a screenshot, and export the rendering as a JPEG. Now you can see here, just looking at this, we see my rendering that I have added the Enscape elements to, so some chairs, a rug, the side tables, plants, sconces, and some artwork. And so you can see here it's rendering in gray tones because anything that is used or brought in from Enscape renders in gray in Revit. So of course, what we have to do is make sure that we go over to Enscape, and we want to make sure, of course, that we've got the workspace perspective selected. That's going to be our rendering. And before I hit this start button to render, what I want to do is just kind of think a little bit about an appropriate background here, because we want to make sure to add that in. Now, originally this was located out in the country, and so we could keep it as a country, or we could think about this as an office a little bit closer to the city. But let's go ahead and start Enscape and go ahead and get that rendering showing. Again, it's going to come up on my other screen, and then I'll bring it over when it's done. I'm going to pause through this process. And you can see my rendering here now. Let's go ahead and hop over to the visual settings here, and we'll be able to then select the atmosphere and the sky and the image behind. So when Enscape thinks about sky, that's its word for background. And so we can go ahead and change this to any of these options here. But I have mine selected as town. And so once I have that, then I'm going to go ahead and close this window. And then I'm going to hit this button over here that says screenshot. And this means it's going to create a rendering of just this view. Now, we can zoom out a little bit or crop this later. But for right now, I'm going to go ahead and hit this button, and it's going to create a screenshot. And that means that anybody who wants to look at this doesn't necessarily need to have Enscape to view it. So of course, it's going to want to know, where do we want to save it and of what file type. So I want to save this as a JPEG image. And then I'm going to go ahead and browse to the folder that I want to save it to. So I'll pause for right now. And I'm going to save this as workspace rendering with Enscape. Now, the other thing that I want to draw your attention to is within the folder of where I'm saving this rendering, I also have created this Revit folder. Now, remember from your Revit class, you want to go ahead and save a folder that's got your Revit files in it, because it's going to create all of those backup files. And it's not going to pop up here because, again, I've got it saved as a JPEG image, so it's only going to show me the JPEG images. But just be aware that if you don't create a Revit folder here, you're going to have all of these Revit backup files kind of floating around within this folder. And of course, as you're working on Revit, even if you're using Enscape, you are still going to create backup files. So just note, as you're saving and working, remember that best practice from a couple classes ago where you had that Revit file created. So I'm going to go ahead and save this with this title, Workspace Rendering with Enscape, as a JPEG. And that is how you add a background, render a screenshot, and import it as a JPEG. And you can see your beautiful rendering sitting in that folder.